Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have a wonderful show for you today, and we're happy to be here, and we're wide awake, aren't we?
Yeah, and you know what? I was in Colorado for 3 days over the weekend, MLK weekend, and my eyes weren't tearing, my allergies weren't bothering me. I'm back in D.C. for a day and a half, and I feel the waterworks coming on. What's up with the allergies out here?
They are bad. I have noticed that. I've had bad allergies, seasonal allergies all my life. They're just as bad here as they are anywhere else, but there's certainly no relief to be had.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully changing weather.
Well, we're going to get some in a few days.
Oh, a snowstorm.
Yeah.
We need to talk about that. Coming up on Rising, we'll recap some of the highlights from day one of the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos, Switzerland, where various world leaders seem to take shots at President Trump.
Plus, the DOJ has subpoenaed Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey for allegedly obstructing an immigration enforcement investigation.
And actor Matt Damon went viral after telling Joe Rogan how Netflix restructuring movies to fit modern-day attention span kind of rubs him the wrong way. First, Robby, what's on your radar?
Rubs me the wrong way as well, and I'll talk about it in a minute. But first, Governor Gavin Newsom can't handle the truth, or at least isn't able to articulate what the truth is. Here he was flubbing a very basic and fundamental question from Ben Shapiro about whether men can become women.
But this idea that Trump says people are going to public schools and coming back, having surgeries and coming back the next day is absurd.
No, but there are certainly cases in which kids are being quote unquote socially transitioned at school without parents knowing about it. I know some of the parents to whom this has happened. I mean, this is the fundamental question that lies at the root of all of this is the question that you're not wanting to answer, which is whether boys can become girls.
Yeah, I think I'm for the grace of God. Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate the sympathy. I also feel terrible for anybody who's suffering with any sort of
I think it's
mental or physical
been the
condition.
case
That's
for
terrible, but
generations, for time immemorial. God bless.
Well, he's not the only one, of course, who struggles to have a coherent answer. Most Democrats, including most of the 2028 contenders, do not want to answer even easier questions about transgender issues. Axios tried to get them on the record on whether trans girls should compete against biological girls in women's sports. And most people dodged that question entirely. Almost all ducked it, writes Axios' CEO. Let's be specific. The list of Democrats who would not even bother responding to that simple question is as follows: Kamala Harris, AOC, J.B. Pritzker, Cory Booker, Andy Beshear, Chris Murphy, Ro Khanna, and Gavin Newsom. The ones who did respond to the question were Josh Shapiro, Pete Buttigieg, and Rahm Emanuel. Shapiro said he did not want trans athletes to have an unfair advantage. Emanuel said flatly, no, they shouldn't compete. And Buttigieg said, well, this was largely a question for sports leagues, not the government. Credit to them, I guess, for even bothering to respond, because most Democrats don't want to admit that they either agree with their radical progressive base on this issue, or more likely are afraid of offending their radical progressive base. Now, trans people, of course, deserve dignity and compassion, equal treatment. The government should not interfere with private medical decisions, in my view, made by consenting adults. With children, it's different. We all broadly accept that the state does take an interest in determining what medical care is appropriate for minors. And then, when we get to youth sports and schools and those accommodations, it's obvious that we need sane policies the vast majority of Americans agree with, which put common sense limitations in place. We cannot have a teenage boy declare himself a teenage girl and suddenly gain access to the girls' locker room or inclusion on the girls' swim team, because that would be completely ridiculous. And if Democrats do not realize that that is ridiculous, and more importantly, admit it's ridiculous, they're going to lose elections. Don't tell Tim Miller that, though. The Bulwark commentator responded to the Axios inquiry on X, writing, "Can a man become a woman is such a rage-bait BS question. It has no bearing on policy. In a free country, an adult can become whatever they want if they don't harm others. The DHS secretary has an entirely new face, and the president wears more makeup than most drag queens." Okay, but wearing a lot of makeup does not magically transform a man into a woman, and a facelift doesn't change a woman into a man. That's kind of the whole point of this debate, that the fundamental truth of a person's biology remains constant despite surface-level cosmetic changes, even very invasive ones. Or at least that's what most people believe. If you feel differently, Democratic presidential aspirants, well, you're welcome to say so. See something? Say something. How about that?
Yeah.
Heard you chuckling, Lindsay?
Read that Bulwark quote again.
That he wears as much makeup as a drag queen.
Does the president, do you find that he wears that much makeup?
I don't know. We all wear makeup on TV. I'm wearing makeup right now. I don't wear makeup in my personal life. Many ladies do. That's fine. Some men do, most don't. I don't in my personal life, but we all do for television.
Okay, I'll reel it in.
But when you wear wearing makeup doesn't turn you into a girl.
It doesn't. And
so that was a little ridiculous there, Tim.
Okay, so I think like everybody's conflating every issue. The sports issue for me is, well, everyone who's asking the question, can men become women? Like, okay, that is a little bit of rage bait. And then there's also just answer the question about the sports, the schools, like the small nominations that this is happening in, like to address it. Yes, there should be maybe there's an open gender bathroom. Maybe there's a girls and boys. I don't really care. In school, I would like my kid to learn. I don't think this is a huge issue. But also in that interview that we saw with Governor Gavin Newsom, something that I wanted to bring up is that he said never has so much attention been paid to so few people. And I think, again, when you look at what's happening in the transgender community, 1% of people in the U.S. identify as transgender. Yeah. But this is every single question on the minds of every single podcaster.
Well,
every single conservative person.
Well,
like a gotcha. And it's like, what are we doing? Because, like, okay, maybe they shouldn't compete in the Olympics. But
it takes a small number of them to win at the sport.
I know, but because there's an avoidance happening in the Democratic Party, I think maybe part of that is just having respect, because not a lot of people from the actual trans community are ever included or considered in the conversation. And I'm talking about of sound mind that have a dialogue about transitioning as an adult. So maybe we bring some more adults in the room to discuss how they're feeling about themselves and stop being these outsiders always trying to impose.
No one's complaining about the adults transitioning. That's fine. I support that. I don't care.
The question is can a girl become a boy? And it's like, okay, so you want me to tell this grown adult who transitioned that they can't possibly do that? Like, why does that matter to Gavin Newsom? If that question is like, can you become, to them they can. He's like, live and let live. That's his biggest thing, is to live and let live. So why is it, let God judge them? Like, leave all these people with all these religious values. Okay, so it's not for you. Then don't be trans. You don't be trans if you don't want to. Why do you want to condemn the entire community?
Okay. Live and let live, I agree with, but this is an issue because there are public policies attached to it and there are public accommodations attached to it, and people are uncomfortable not wanting said individuals. Again, I don't care for whatever, the bathroom at the airport. Who cares? I agree. I don't care. The bathroom is not some sacred space. The public, like, whatever. But locker rooms, it's an uncomfortable time for teenagers. Having to be, disrobe, changing for sports games in front of other people. I would like more privacy in that regard anyway, just for young people. It's a horrifying experience for a lot of kids. But you can't just have people can change their label at whim and then gain access to those facilities for teenagers, and then, more importantly, compete on the actual teams. It's not competitive.
This is not
just blow them out of the water.
This is not sweeping the globe of like the biggest problem.
There only has to be one in the league for them to win every.
Oh my gosh!
They'll be the state champion.
Okay, so perhaps
that's true.
Perhaps we should develop a trans league then. Perhaps we should, but it also
to your point, there's not enough. I agree that would be a better outcome. Right, but to your point, there's not enough of it.
But that's what I mean about including people in the conversation to figure out what the next steps are, rather than trying to isolate and say your experience is not valid, and so we're just going to discredit that you believe this is your life experience, right? It's not for Gavin Newsom or some of these leaders to determine that. They're like, why am I jumping in this conversation that affects 1% of America? The way that Republicans line it up is that it's overly taking over the world. Every sport, my kid's not going to have an opportunity to go to college because our scholarship's going to be taken by somebody.
I mean, that happens.
Like, no.
That happens.
But it's not running amok. So why? So the economy's bad. There's other things that are happening. Why don't we focus on something that makes sense to focus on, rather than trying to have a gotcha moment with Gavin Newsom?
Don't focus on argument. Okay, yes. Is it the most important issue facing the human civilization? Well, no, but no specific issue is. You can delegitimize a conversation about everything based on that, because unless we're talking about thermonuclear war or something, then it doesn't seem as important. I don't know why Democrats can't just admit that the far left base has gone insane on this for the accommodations for kids, and there should be nobody who's biologically male competing against.
Well, Ben Shapiro's question wasn't specifically about kids. He did ask if a man can become a woman, right, biologically. So that was going to overarchingly give an answer to the community, to say that he doesn't see the adult's experience, which I would
just say, no, you can't change the number of chromosomes you have. You can become a man can become a trans woman, and there's a new category for that, and that's fine, and that deserves accommodations, but you can't change the number of chromosomes you have, is how I would answer the question.
Coming up on Rising, President Trump is currently speaking at the World Economic Forum conference in Davos, Switzerland. We'll also discuss day one of the conference up next. We'll be right back.